Hi, my name is Stuart Green. I'm the founding and managing attorney of Stuart Green Law. We are a boutique estates, trust, and tax planning law firm focused exclusively on high net worth clients. So today's video is going to be about South Dakota trust planning and why it's important and why South Dakota has the best jurisdiction in the United States, as well as one of the best in the world for clients to domicile their trust. So one of the interesting things that I think happens, or I think there's this interesting discrepancy, we see businesses and corporations shop around to jurisdictions that offer the best business and corporate laws, as well as tax laws, but we don't see a lot of individual clients and families taking the same approach. We see more and more now, but to me, there's still this discrepancy that attorneys aren't working with their clients to make sure that they are taking advantage of the best trust and tax laws that are out there that are being offered. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about 10 different reasons why South Dakota is best, and why even if you aren't someone who lives in South Dakota, maybe you're someone who doesn't even live in the United States, you should be considering South Dakota as the jurisdiction for your trust planning. I'm not located in South Dakota. I don't live there. I don't even have an office there, but I've become convinced that I have an obligation to offer clients not only the best legal services that I can, but as well as offer them these premier trust and tax laws for their estate planning. So that's what we have done. All right, without further ado, why is South Dakota great when it comes to trust and tax planning? Number one, dynastic planning. So South Dakota did away with the rule against perpetuities quite a while ago. So the rule against perpetuities basically means that a trust has a shelf life. So it can only exist for so long, and at some point assets then have to be distributed to beneficiaries, and that's going to begin triggering estate tax issues for families. So the way that this is avoided is going to a state like South Dakota that has dynastic trust planning statutes. So that means these trusts can exist forever. They never have to be, assets never have to be kicked out of the trust. And so it can live forever and make sure that there's no estate tax that's going to be assessed at some point down the road for some generation of your family. Next is no state income tax. So assets that are inside of a South Dakota trust are not going to be assessed a state income tax. Now there's some nuances to this, but it's important to know not every state has done away with their income tax. South Dakota has, and so any activity that goes on inside of a trust is not going to be taxable activity in South Dakota. Next, and this is staying with that tax theme here, is community property trust. So different states have different laws around property laws. So there's only, I think, about 10 or so, maybe a few more community property jurisdictions in the country. And so this means that if you live in a community property state, so you'll get a step up in basis, meaning that there's going to be a reduction in any capital gains tax when there is a transaction. You'll get a step up in basis after the first spouse passes away, and then you get an additional step up in basis when the second spouse passes away. Typically this doesn't happen, and you're going to get it on all of those assets that the spouses share as community property. So it's a great capital gains tax strategy to be able to take advantage of community property statutes. So if you don't live in a community property state, what do? Well, you take advantage of South Dakota community property trust statutes. So South Dakota has allowed non-residents to South Dakota to opt in to South Dakota's community property statutes. So even if you live in, say, Texas, well, Texas is a bad example because they are a community property state. Let's say you live in, I don't know, New York. That's a great example. Or Pennsylvania, who don't have community property. you can opt into South Dakota with trust planning to make sure that when the first spouse dies, you're getting a full step up in basis, and then again another step up in basis when the second spouse passes away. So it's a great opportunity to be able to reduce capital gains tax. So the next, number 4, I got my cheat sheet here. So number 4 is domestic asset protection trust planning. So historically, an individual is not able to set up a trust for their own benefit and fund it with their own assets, and those assets be protected from creditors, divorcing spousal claims, lawsuits, any type of obligation they may end up owing someone else. However, there's 20 states in the country that have passed asset protection statutes that do allow individuals to set up an irrevocable trust for their own benefit, put their own assets in there, and protect them from creditors, divorcing spouses, lawsuits, that type of thing. So South Dakota has asset protection statutes, and therefore you can, regardless if you live there or not, you can take advantage of these asset protection statutes. So it's again, couple that with the fact they don't have a state income tax, that there's dynastic planning. There's a lot of really cool things that you can use to your advantage. Next, we're going to talk about trust protectors. So this is a particular role, and different states have trust protectors. It's not exclusive to South Dakota, but South Dakota has really, really well-written trust protector statutes that define the role of trust protector really well, whereas other states don't necessarily do that. So the trust protector is kind of like a trustee, a super trustee, someone that can oversee what the trustee is doing, how they're performing, are they doing what they should, are they administering the trust the way according to the intent of the person who set the trust up. And if they're not, the trust protector can step in, they can fire, replace a trustee, or they can even decant a trust. And decant is actually another reason that South Dakota has the premier trust statutes. So we'll make that number 6, decanting. Decanting is for irrevocable trust. So historically, a lot of people have thought that irrevocable trusts cannot be revoked, they can't be amended, they can't be updated. They're really, really rigid. You're locked in once you execute the document. And again, historically, that might have been the case, but it hasn't been for some time now. The modernization of trust laws has allowed for decanting, which means that you basically can revoke, amend, and start over with an irrevocable trust if it no longer serves its purpose, if it no longer is just really working the way that you had originally intended it. So you can come in and you can start from scratch. You can kick out assets in the original trust, move them over to a new trust. And this is a great opportunity if you have a trust in a different state and you want to move it to South Dakota. There's a few other options to be able to accomplish that, but decanting is a great strategy. Number 7 is directed trust. So different states, there's other states that have directed trust, but again, this comes down to how well written South Dakota's statutes around trust planning really are, and they have really robust, well-defined directed trust statutes. So a directed trust, rather than keeping all of the administration responsibilities with the trustee, it bifurcates these trustee responsibilities into multiple roles. So now all of a sudden you go from having one entity, one organization, or one person overseeing the administration of the trust, the investment of the assets of the trust, the distribution of those assets to beneficiaries, and you've moved it around to people that you believe are the best individuals or organizations for those particular roles. And this is really great. It helps build a succession plan for the trust, for the family wealth, as well as make sure that you're getting the professionals in there that you want to serve. So a great example is so you have the trustee, then you also have an investment advisor, as well as distribution committee or distribution advisor, and there's a few other roles that I'll address as well. But one of the beauties is you can name your financial advisor or the institution that does your financial advising, wealth management, in that investment advisor role. They can continue. So this is important when mom and dad pass away, and maybe the kids don't have a financial advisor, or maybe mom and dad want the kids to keep the same financial advisor because they know the intent of the trust, they understand what mom and dad really wanted over time, and so they can name that person or that institution. So it's a great way for financial advisors to continue with the family over time. That's something I think financial advisors like to see, as well as families. So we're going to move on here to number 8, and that is privacy. So South Dakota has the best privacy laws by far of any jurisdiction. And so one of the things, there's really 2 things when it comes to privacy. First one is that if a trust ever becomes subject to some court proceeding, there is a automatic seal on the contents and details related to that trust. So it will never become part of the public domain. It will never become part of public knowledge as long as it's a South Dakota trust. And so the other thing that's really, really unique to South Dakota is quiet trust laws. And so that means that the settlor, the person setting up the trust, can indicate inside the trust how much or how little that the beneficiaries are allowed to know about the trust. So they can actually make it where the beneficiaries never know anything about any trust that mom or dad or someone else has set up and left for the children. We find that a lot of really wealthy families who may not want to run into a situation where they're just leaving trust funds for children who probably shouldn't have full access, or maybe shouldn't know that they have this money or these monies to rely on and depend on. They want that kind of privacy because they think it's going to protect their children if they aren't expecting that mom and dad can continue to take care of them. So it's a really, really great tool that a lot of wealthy families like to take care of. Number 9 here, and I'm getting close to the end, so bear with me. So number 9, special purpose entity. This is unique to South Dakota. It is an LLC that helps a trust protector or someone in these other roles that we've talked about sever any relationship that they may have with another state. So it helps maintain or guarantee that South Dakota domicile. It helps secure that South Dakota is the governing state, that there is no relationship with another state that may be pulling someone in back to a different state that you don't want to be pulled into. So it also provides, protects from personal liability for these individuals who may be serving in these various roles, and then helps direct the trustee as they carry out their administrative roles. And then number 10 is family advisor, and this goes back to those directed trust statutes and the various roles. So this is a unique role to South Dakota, and it's the family advisor. And so this is kind of like a trustee light. So if you remember, I said that the trust protector is kind of like the super trustee. Well, the family advisor is kind of a trustee light. They're kind of they work in a similar way to oversee the various roles that are being carried out within the trust, make sure that the intent of the trust is being carried out. And usually you'll see a family attorney or a family CPA that's serving in this role. And again, it helps with that succession over multiple generations. If you have that family advisor as a part of the trust document, and they can continue to oversee and make sure everything's going according to mom and dad's wishes. So that's it. Some of these things are very, very unique to South Dakota. Some other states may have some similar benefits that they offer to trust planning. But all of this coupled together really makes South Dakota the premier trust and tax statutes. So if you have any questions, let me know, reach out. Like this video, you'll get notified of other content that we're putting out. I'm gonna dive into more detail regarding all of these items that I've mentioned in this video. This was just an introductory video to get familiar with some of these things. So like the video, subscribe to our channel as we continue to put out related information to South Dakota and other planning techniques.